had to say, part of the gift we offer is not only what we're saying, but how we're saying it. And you bring both, like the content itself, thematically or words that you use is so good, but just your energy in doing it, and even the visual here is so beautiful. Like all the candle, like the candles there next to the salt lamp, like this is just lovely. So I think it's perfect. And
Well, this is my office. This is my office. I have a Nefertiti painting that up here my brother brought back from Egypt. It's on papyrus,
wow,
so it's one of my favorite paintings. So
oh,
it's
so
hanging in
cool.
my office.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
like something of history and ancient right there. That's so
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Cool. Um, well, today, we'll open up a topic together. You still want it to sort of be like I just bring a topic and we'll just
Yep.
open it up.
We just talk, and I'll share what I can share, and
Love
we'll
it.
just hopefully it'll be helpful for people. So,
No, I think so. I think so. Um, and so today we'll talk a little bit about tools. What like all the topic of tools in the spiritual path, and this was really inspired by the meditation you led this week with playing the Monroe tapes, and I was like,
okay.
oh my gosh, like I just take it for granted because of talking with people like you and Tom, and like, oh, like I kind of have a general sense of tools, but like if someone is a beginner or even intermediate on the path, I think there's so much to unpack around, like, what are tools? How do you use them? Are they the right tools? Like all those kinds of questions that might come up for somebody. So I thought that might be actually really fun to talk about today. So that's a little bit of where I was headed.
Okay, sure. The first tool that we learn, of course, is well, the Monroe stuff. We use the Hemi-Sync, because what the Hemi-Sync does is it helps you to get into that nice whole grain state fairly quickly. Like they've had Zen Buddhist monks go to the Monroe Institute and said it's taken them 20 to 25 years of sitting to get to the states that you get to with the Hemi-Sync within about 15 minutes. So, that's an amazing shortcut that technology provides, and, that Tom and Dennis Meinrich helped to create for the Monroe Institute way back when. So, that's really fantastic. So, and I've noticed with the Hemi-Sync that the more you use it and the more you practice with it, because it creates new neural pathways between the left and the right hemisphere of the brain. And so the left brain always talks in, either the future or the past. The right brain is present in the now. In the right brain, everything is happening now. So the right brain doesn't know the difference. If your left brain is thinking of something that happened in the past, your body responds as though that event were happening again. So when we dredge up old hurts or old wounds, it's like the right brain thinks it's happening now, and your body goes into that same state of whatever, that you had when you had that experience, whether it's negative or positive. But so remembering the past in a positive way can be very uplifting, but remembering, and generally we're remembering the negative things, because that's what we all struggle with, is how do we clear out, because our lives are not perfect. They just aren't. I don't know of anyone who's had an absolutely perfect life from the time they were born until, I can't think of a single person. So, and if they exist, congratulations, that's amazing. But that doesn't seem to be the path that we are invited on when we come on this human journey, right? It's okay, here you're in the soup. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to look at it through the eyes of being loving to yourself and others, or are you going to look at it from the eyes of being, I've been a victim, I've been abused, I've been whatever has happened in the past that creates your own feelings about who you are? Then that's the lens you see through on every event. And it's not like it's ever finished. I just did some healing work on the weekend where some stuff came up. So, and I've been doing this for a long time. So it's not like it's ever finished, but it gets to a place where you kind of get to be aware of, oh, I'm reacting differently to this particular situation than I would have normally. So there must be some trigger within me, and that awareness is the opportunity to go in with the tools you learn through, whatever courses or whatever you find, books or however they come to you. So the tool of meditation is really, really helpful because it gets you to a still, calm, quiet place, and it gets you into the Hemi-Sync, gets you into that theta brainwave state, which is where the divine has an easier time of communicating with us. So, I mean, when you're kids, you're in the theta brainwave all the time. I don't know if people know that, but between birth and about 5 or 6 years of age, you're just in theta all the time. So life seems like it goes on, and your games are real, and because everything is in that theta brainwave state. And unfortunately, if there are negative things that happen, they go into the brain computer hardwired as though that's really the way things are too. So, you know, that's what a lot of us spend a lot of years going through, or some of those events from childhood. And they don't even have to be really negative ones. Like my dad was a school teacher and I had an older brother. And when I was 4, my brother was 6, and it was time for him to go to school. And I had abandonment stuff go on because how come he goes to school? My 4-year-old self interpreted daddy taking older brother to school as that I wasn't good enough. And that wasn't the case at all. I just wasn't old enough. But nobody knew to explain that to me, but it created a whole bunch of stuff that I ended up dealing with later. And it wasn't, it wasn't a terrible thing, but it was interpreted that way by the 4-year-old me. And that's the thing you just don't have control over, right? So, and those are the things that when they come out, it's like, oh, okay, well now, and as you go down this path, you get more and more tools because they just keep coming, right? They just keep coming, and the more you use them, the better they get. So, does that kind of answer the question?
Oh, yeah, sure does. Wow. To think about the times we're living in, where things like Hemi-Sync and that amazing left and right hemisphere coordination and tools of meditation and all the online resources to learn and practice that. And, like we're living in quite an unprecedented time where the kinds of resources that are available are kind of amazing, like I even think about like my parents' generation and their parents before them, like, there were some pretty highly motivated people and they could get some work done if they wanted to, but it was a lot of uphill against culture. Like,
Oh,
therapy wasn't talked about, certainly not these kinds of like
no,
spiritual and meditation topics, that was very fringe, maybe in like you know the hippies in the 60s or something that was starting to happen, but
yeah.
really, wow, we are living in a time where the amount of resources and tools is quite something.
And society is very accepting as well of people that are doing their work for themselves. And so that's also a benefit. And there's highly trained coaches that are available. So, that again, that's all part of the work that can go into. And the more you take your thoughts kind of as your creative force in the world, the more power that you start to have in actually directing, right? Yeah, we don't realize it for a lot of years that we're the director of our life movie by what's going on in here. So, and everything is subjective. We see things through the lens of our own subjectivity. So, if we're looking at things and we're looking at them in a way that they're creating feelings of harm or hurt within us, that's actually an opportunity to heal something. And if we can see it that way and have, friends that are able to help us, or, a good coach or someone that we can rely on to go and, hey, this is what I'm thinking. I mean, I had a friend call me this morning. I got stuff going on, help me out. And I love being able to do that. So,
Mm.
it's really, really nice to be able to have that perspective. And I do the same thing, right? I got this going on, help me out. And we do need someone, because it's virtually impossible to solve the problem from the same lens it was created through. You really do need someone that's kind of over here that can look at it objectively. And the more intuitive that person is, because we don't sometimes share everything that's going on, but if you've got somebody who's got a lot of intuition and can kind of pull more data into the mix, that's a really helpful thing.
Right? Oh, totally, totally. And wow, I remember, some sessions I've had with folks that have that ability to kind of pull information, and it's like so helpful, right? To get, I think it was Einstein who said you can't solve a problem from within the system that the problem is originating. You have to get a solution outside of that system to really transform it. And so to bring in tools, bring in support, and get that input from outside. And then, like you're saying, the more we work with that, it's like, oh, now I'm getting in my own groove of creativity. Like something new can be generated from inside of me that, I continue to receive support from the outside. That's important. And I start to get sort of attraction too. Like in my meditations, there's a creative element of myself where, I didn't intellectually think of this tool that came through or this being or this support, but things happen in meditation. And then, wow, like we are I love how you said it. We're the directors, we're the creators, and in meditation spaces, that can be so um, direct and a good example. Like we can see it happening in meditation. Like, oh, like there's creation happening here.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely.
Mm. And it reminds me, of the meditation that you facilitated, the time for the Monroe folks that were gathering with you, and wow, like, when we were going through these guided experiences, in our meditations, we were not only it's almost like, layers within layers, like, we were using the tool of Hemi-Sync and these guided meditations, and then within those meditations, there were non-physical tools, like, we were creating, like, light bars and, like, all these kinds of things that are just, endlessly fascinating to me, that creative space. So I'm curious, like for those who may be like at the beginning of their meditation journey and they don't have a ton of experience with like non-physical or like tools within meditation, like when you go to spaces, how would you speak to like a new person who is like, oh, I want to start being able to do tools in my meditation?
Yeah, so the tools that are most helpful in the beginning are being able to get your mind to quiet, just to have a place to put. So one of the tools that we use at the Monroe Institute is the energy conversion box. So, with me being an ex-banker, I had an energy conversion safe where I would just walk things into the safe and put them on the shelves and shut the door. And that's a tool that you create in your own mind, whether it's a sea chest or whatever. You make this really wonderful place that you can put all of those stray thoughts. And so as you're having those thoughts during your meditation practice, you just go to the box, go to the box, go to the box. I'll deal with it later, go to the box. And you just don't let it sit in there and hold on like like a cat claw. Don't let it to just, okay, thank you, and close the box and just let it flow through, right? And try to get to that just beautiful, relaxed, peaceful. Because if you're talking all the time, it's hard to hear somebody, and that's the brain talking when you have those thoughts coming through. So being able to get your brain to be still and quiet, which is the goal of meditation, that's that's what you're aiming for. So, if you can get your mind to settle to that place, and like I said, the more you listen to the Hemi-Sync sounds, the more you do get to that place of still quiet, and the communication from the non-physical can come in much more clearly.
Oh. And I so appreciate how you sort of lay out the sequence of that because I've in my own journey, for understandable reasons, I've been very eager. So I'll jump into my meditation, and I'm like, okay, I'm like ready to do stuff. I'm ready to go, and I'm a fish swimming upstream because the downstream of the noise of my mind is it's not an environment that's very helpful for getting things done. So I'm eager, and I jump in and like, oh, push that thought, and I'm trying to focus, and it's like your reflection there is such a useful one where it's like, oh, tools, of course. And the most important tools to start with is the ones that really help kind of calm the brain, calm the nervous system, if you want to use kind of physiology language, or get things quiet inside of there so that
Yeah.
then you can, have a productive meditation with what you want to do. But in the beginning, it's just getting to that still quiet place, like you said, is the purpose of meditation. And there are tools for that, like the energy conversion box. That was cool. And I'm sure there's other kinds of tools where people can store things for later, or whatever they need to do in order to just exist in a very quiet place. So I love that sequence there.
Yeah. And being able to have that ability in quieting when if there ever is an emergency, being able to get that one breath quiet, that's another tool, being able to just calm, peaceful on a one breath, just and everything relaxes. That is a really powerful tool to be able to develop.
Mm, yeah, then you can use it anytime, right? Like, oh, not just for meditation, but like you're saying, an emergency happens, something urgent, something unexpected. I can show up for my life in different situations if I just take a moment with this tool that I've been practicing with to, have focus and calm. And we all know we're more effective when we're focused, when we're calm, and I can tell myself, oh, be focused and calm, and maybe my that works for some people, but a lot of people they need like tools, like they're seeing something or they're doing something with their body or they're visualizing. And so it's just wonderful to think about how, oh, these tools are not just for meditation, they're for life. Like they really help us live well.
Yeah. And it's helpful. I mean, mom with a new baby and the baby's crying and you can't get the baby to settle and it stresses you out and the baby feels the stress and then the baby cries even more. So being able to do a one breath technique as like someone who's a new mom, and then the baby calms, right? And then it's like, everything picks up our vibration, our pets, all the people around us. And it's amazing that ability to just take in one calming breath. And the more you practice that, just visualize your body just ready to sleep and take that one calm breath and everything relaxes. And the more you use the tools again, the more you practice with them, the better they get. And the easier it is to get to those nice relaxed states.
Mm.
So
and,
yeah,
and
help.
it's yeah, and it's such an approachable tool, that one calm breath, because everyone's got 15 seconds. It's like, oh, and it's only one thing I have to do, and I can use it anytime, anywhere. And the instruction is so simple. Just take one calm breath and you're already going to approach life, whether it's meditation or another situation, you're already going to approach it much more differently.
And breathing is such a powerful tool. I mean, we did a class, a long time ago with breath meditation, and when you get into that really, it's like we were using breath to be able to meditate, and when you get into that, it's almost like you're not the one breathing; you're actually being breathed by spirit, and it was such a fabulous feeling of just total connection and oneness, but it's all done with the breath. So our breath that's the first thing we do when we're born. We take a breath. And it's the last thing we do when we die. We let the last breath go. So, breath is part of what our beingness is, right? In addition to our vibration and our physical form in that. But the breath is a powerful, powerful part of us.
And it's happening all the time, effortlessly too. Like, oh, like it's part of this being that we are. And there's some element of like it's done for us. And I love that, like, class where it's like, ah, you're being breathed by the universe, right? Like how nice is that, just to be in the back seat of a car and you just get to like enjoy the view and the breath is happening. And to
Well,
for
most
that.
of us do. Yeah, we don't think about breathe in, breathe out. I mean, that's not in there, but it's an automatic thing. You just do it. But when you have a conscious breath, that's a different thing than our regular breathing. And I think most people breathe really, really shallowly. So when you take that nice deep breath, it actually creates a relaxation response in your body because it's like, oh. right? I'm here, I'm present.
Yeah, yeah, and that deep breath, it sort of sends a different signal, right? Like, oh, like everything's okay. Like
Yeah,
shallow breath, like, oh, is there a problem to solve? Is there a threat to address?
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, oh, this deep breath is like, hey, yeah,
Yeah, everything's okay. I'm safe, and and if you need that for anxiety, that's another really wonderful tool if you're starting to feel anxious. And you just use your breath to control as much as possible. My son had asthma, and he had a really bad asthma attack. And when we took him to the doctor, he was actually consciously forcing the air into his lungs, and the doctor was amazed that this 16-year-old kid was able to do that. And I'm so grateful that he was, because had he not been able to do that, he wouldn't have survived that particular asthma attack. But again, a powerful demonstration of how powerful our breath can be, right?
yes,
And you've ever been, hit in the solar plexus and the wind knocked out of you, and that feeling of not being able to draw breath, it creates panic and stress in the body. So being able to do that long, slow breath, it does help to really settle the stress, and it's a nice tool. It's a nice tool. But there's lots of other great tools. One of the ones that I use is like and these are all imaginal tools or imaginary tools. But one of the ones I use is like a screen to send like healing and cleaning out the physical body of things. So it's a really fine molecular imaginary screen, and I make it up out of silver or gold or gemstones or whatever is my intuitive guidance. I'll ask spirit to create that and run the screen through. And I've had remarkable success with that with people, where that tool is really, really, really helpful to have that run through. And people have said, "Oh, I feel so much different." And so again, it's getting to a place of trusting what you're guided to do, and that takes time. It does. It's not something that you get right away. It takes a little bit of time to learn how some of these tools, and every tool that you create for yourself actually gets to be a little bit more effective. When we were doing the healing with in Tom's classes, we did you see a white vision of the person's body, and then you ask spirit to show you wherever there's an energy you blockage or whatever in black. And so that's pretty easy to see, a lighted figure, and then ask where's the darkness, and you send the healing energy to that dark spot. And whether that actually exists within the person or not, you're still intending to send them healing energy. And so they're going to pick that up on some level and take it in and use that. So it's really helpful. I mean, I've seen so many amazing stories of people that have been sent healing intentions, and I mean, miracles can happen. Lynn McTaggart's work about the power of eight, which I'm in a group that we've been meeting for 5 years. Every Thursday night we meet together. And I was going to mention too about the Tuesday night classes. They're free, and if people want to go, all they need to do is send an email to monroeinternationalchapter at Gmail, and then I can put them on the mailing list and include them. And then they're invited we meet Tuesday night at 6 Mountain Time, the meditations you were talking about earlier. So I just wanted
awesome.
to share that. Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you thought of that. And we'll make sure to put that email address in the description below so people can just copy and paste. And yeah, join the meditations. It's been such a wonderful resource for me to be joining in with y'all on that. So thank you for that. And it's been quite powerful. And like you're saying, like there's so many tools out there, like the screen, right? And the white body with the black spots, like the amount of creativity is literally endless. And it can really, I know for me it's really helped to hear examples of other people's tools and be guided and go to practitioners who use their tools, and then I start to get a sense of, oh, like these are things that I can create. Like I can find ones, like you said, it resonates with my intuition, like it's natural to me and connected with spirit. And so then I begin to be able to create my own tools. The more I'm working with other people's tools or guided experience or receiving help, and then I get to become creator eventually. Like I get to participate.
Well, you always are creator, really. You're creating everything that's attracted into your world. A lot of people don't want that responsibility, but it doesn't change the truth of it, because you send a vibratory energy out into the field, whether it's something that you're fearful of or something that you'd like to experience. And based on that vibration you're sending out into the field just says yes, and it sends it back. So that's pretty, pretty interesting to realize after a period of time. And, you don't have to take my word for it. I mean, there's lots of other people that have, written books about it and commented on it. So.
And how like interesting that is, because like, oh, like I'm constantly a creator, and if I don't have tools, then that can be kind of scary, like, oh, I'm creating and I don't know how, or I'm creating and I'm not in control, and and oh, like if I have tools though, like then it's like, oh, like I'm a creator always, and
Yeah.
I can direct that process in a way that is authentic for me. I create my own tools or borrow other people's that resonate with me, and then I start to take control of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And you actually are creating from a place of consciousness rather than a place of unconscious creation. We all go through these sort of phases, right? There's unconscious incompetence. I don't know what I don't know, right? So that's kind of the beginning. When you're a baby, you don't know that you don't know how to walk, right? Until you start to look at, oh, well, hey, mom and dad were walking, and older sister or older brother are walking, and I'm not. And I learn how to get my body so that I get to the point where, okay, now I'm pulling myself up and, holding onto furniture as I practice walking around, and then I start walking. So now you've gone from a place of unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence, like at least I know I don't know how to do that, right? So now you've moved into another phase of beingness, conscious incompetence, where you don't know. And then you move to this place of conscious competence, where you have to think about walking, right? So you move up to that level. And then you get to a place where you don't even have to think about it anymore. You're unconsciously competent. So you kind of move through these phases, right? So and that's the way it is with everything, whether it's meditation or playing a musical instrument or learning how to read, or, all of those, we all go through those phases. And there's lots of things, like, I mean, if you look at all of the knowledge that's available in the world as like a big circle, if you think about how much do I actually know, it's probably, 1 degree of that circle of all the knowledge that's available. How much do we have access to? And going into meditation, it gives us the opportunity to have access to a whole lot more. And a lot of times when we go into meditation, all we get is like blackness or nothingness, because we don't have a bucket or a container to bring that information back in, right? And it starts with learning our own boundaries and creating a container for ourselves. If we don't know who we are and what makes us unique in the world, we don't have boundaries. So then we go out into the meditative space with no boundaries, and you're not going to bring anything back, because you've got no container to hold it in.
Yeah, and that just so helpful, because folks are like, oh, like something's wrong with me. All I see is black. And just to have that understanding of like, oh, it's really that simple, right? Like this is just where things are in the process. And I loved your examples too, Beth, of like walking, like we would never like fault a little child for like not being able to walk right away, and that's how the spiritual process is. It's so progressive and stages, and I think I'll speak for myself, and maybe a lot of people resonate. We're so inspired by beings that are a little farther along in the journey. We're like, oh, I want to be like them, and why aren't I like them? Why aren't I, the Olympic athlete on TV, and here we are crawling on the ground? And it's like, well, you can be like first
Yeah, yeah.
you lean against the couch and you wobble, and that's a perfectly good progress there. And so it's really cool to hear your reflections on those stages, right? Because there are stages and there are tools for each stage, and
There are.
maybe tools help you lean against the couch, but I don't need the couch anymore. I'm gonna hobble over to mom who's saying, "Come here," and I don't need the couch, and I
Yeah,
get the praise, and
yeah.
so yeah, it's a thing.
And spirit's always wanting to help us, right? It's just being clear in our intention and asking, because that's one of their kind of unwritten rules, is that they're not supposed to interfere unless we ask, right? Unless it's life threatening, and then they will sometimes. But for the most part, the I can't remember who said it, but I kind of made an interesting point. The cheese commercial with the angels all sitting on the clouds. They're all of our guides and guardians are up there going, yeah, I can help you with that if you just ask. Yeah, I could help with that if you just would ask me. Hello, I'm here if you just would ask. So
Right.
I thought that was kind of a funny, because I mean that was, one of the many classes I've taken. That was one of the teacher's suggestions was, you know, that's really how your guides are. They're up there waiting for you to say, hey,
Right.
can you help
Right.
me with this?
Right. You can almost imagine them at like the water cooler of Angel Central, and they're like, "I finally got a page today." They're talking with each other, and like, "Oh, he got a page this week." Like, wow.
Wow, your person is acknowledging you. Wow, that's so awesome.
Oh, it's awesome, and something really of there's truth there, because one of the most important tools is like other beings, whether they be physical or non, and it's like, hey, there's a whole skill of like knowing what help I need, putting it into words, asking for it, being open to receiving. There's a lot of steps to this tool, and every single one of them requires probably some personal growth if we haven't done it a lot. So,
Yeah,
it's a worthwhile thing, this tool of like getting help.
yeah, and asking, just being clear and saying, show me something.
Yeah, right.
One of the classes I teach the week. I've been teaching the weekend outreach program since 2010, and at one of the classes I was taking, one of the gentlemen who was in the class was trying to decide about a job he wanted. And so during one of the meditations, he wrote down these numbers, and it turned out to be the GPS coordinates of the head office of the job he was considering taking. How clear could that be for a spirit message? Like, okay, here, these are the GPS coordinates of the building where your head office is going to be if you take the job.
Mm, right.
So
That's almost like joke status. Like give me some direction. Here's GPS coordinates. Like yeah,
yeah, yeah, and I mean, one of the classes I took at the Monroe Institute, I didn't think I'd gotten a very clear message, and because all I saw was this field of stars. We were supposed to ask for a message for someone else in the class, and so I didn't know who my partner was. Like the group had selected your partner, but you went and meditated not knowing who they were. So and then they had tarot cards out in case you felt like you didn't get a message. But anyway, all I got was this field of stars when I asked for a message for my partner. And then when we went down to the white room to share, then you got told who your partner was, and my partner was asking whether he should stay and take Star Lines, which was the next week at the Monroe Institute. So the field of stars was actually a very appropriate, message for him, right? and so I didn't feel like I got one, so I picked a tarot card up, and he'd drawn the very same tarot card that I'd picked up and didn't like it and put it back. And so I'd then redrawn, there's 3 decks of tarot cards, and there's 52 to 70 some in each deck. So the odds of me picking the exact same card he'd picked up previously are pretty slim. So those kinds of things, when they happen in classes, are so memorable, because it's like, wow, we don't think we're getting clarity. And sometimes that's why we ask for others, because for others, we actually pay more attention to what we get for messages. Seeing a field of stars for me would have been, oh, it's just blackness, right? But that's probably how I would have interpreted it.
oh, that's such a good example, right? Because in meditation, when we're using our tools of asking for support in certain ways or using our tools to get information, there's just this classic instruction that we take for granted now. But for people who are new, it's like you have to trust what you get. You know, it's like, oh, like do I start judging or analyzing it in meditation? It's like not like just get the information and go with it. And because we don't know what purpose it serves often.
And by judging and analyzing, we're actually bringing in the left brain again, and we shut the right brain down when we start doing that. So that's where our clearest communication comes, is when we're in that right, that, well, it's better in the whole brain state because you can get the whole message. But the right brain seems to have an easier time getting message from the database.
Mm. Mm,
Yeah.
wow. And then, we come full circle here to like Hemi-Sync. It's like, oh, someone who's always in their left brain, that's no crime, but they're like, oh, I want to expand, but
Yeah.
they're they're trying to like squeeze through think of like Alice in Wonderland or something. It's like there's like a small door. It hasn't been developed to like adult size. So like, how do I get into this like small door? And they drink this little potion, and and then they shrink down, they're able to go inside, and it's like that's something like Hemi-Sync or binaural beats or whatever tools really help,
Yep.
get those hemispheres talking with each other and coordinate a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, awesome, awesome. Well, Beth, this has been such a rich conversation around tools because, this is something that is immediately practical for people. So I really appreciate your insights and experiences from this. And yeah, would you have any final words or thoughts on anything that we've shared today before we wrap up?
Well, I had an interesting conversation with somebody on the phone, and they asked me what one piece of advice I could give for somebody just starting out. And I said, really the best thing that you can do is to check in on what you are thinking and pay attention to all of the thoughts that you're thinking, and recognize that that is your creative force in the world. And who else is in control of your thoughts but you? So if you're not, I can't remember who said it, but the mind is a powerful servant, but when it thinks it's the master, it becomes a terrible taskmaster. And that's really the case. We start out with this process of learning how to differentiate and begin to control our thinking process most of all. And the more we can put positive messages in our mind for us, and feelings of caring about ourselves, and then as an overflow of that, being self-loving, caring for others, that is really, really where it begins. It has to begin within, and then it flows to without. If you're trying to give love and caring to people around you when you're beating the crap out of yourself, it comes from a very inauthentic place. So the best thing you can do is to really learn to love and accept who you are in the world, and recognize yourself as this divine being that is in control of what you're thinking about. You may not be in control of all the things that are going on around you and outside of you, but definitely within you, that is within your power to change. So work on that, shift that.
Wow, wow, wow. And if we start there, and even a sizable minority of the world started doing that, what a world we'd live in, where people are starting to pay attention to their thoughts and befriend themselves more than anything else, rather than the negativity toward ourselves or others. If we start to be our own ally and really shift that compassionate core towards ourselves, and then it flows out from there, yeah, we'll live in a different place, and
And
that's worth aiming for.
it's worth aiming for that world, and we all create it by our beingness, right? Each one of us contributes to that being loving of first this person, and then and it's not, I'm not talking about being a narcissist or any of those negative words. I'm talking about truly loving yourself enough to have safe boundaries, and to treat yourself as though you're valuable, and to think about yourself as though you're worthwhile. And most of us aren't very skilled at that. We've taken on these media messages of, fear, 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 and it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, yeah, it really doesn't. I'll speak for myself, and maybe you connect with this, Beth. If we look at the timeline of our lives, we have seen within our own journey, like self relationship and other relationship can transform in ways that like real stuck patterns get unstuck. And there's like boundaries, there's self-love, there's compassion for others that, aren't codependent and all that kind of stuff. It's like there's all these ways that we really can shift. And I'll include your contact information, Beth, in the description below. Maybe people are like, I want that kind of life, but I just need help. And that's part of what this themes today has been, is like one of the tools for the spiritual journey and the inner journey is like asking for help, both physically and non-physically. So we'll get your contact info in
Thank
the description here so that folks can reach out if they're ready to get started with you. And thank you, Beth, again for this conversation. Super enjoyable for me.
Well, so thank you so much, Nathan, for being there and doing this with me too. I so appreciate it. I love talking about this. I could talk about this for hours and hours.
Right, right. And we will. Yeah, this is just episode 1, right? More to come.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Okay. Well, thanks so much, Nathan.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, yeah. Ciao for now. Until next time, y'all. Thank you for joining
Okay.
us.
Okay.